Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the finance meeting for Wednesday, October the 28th. A couple items on the agenda. The first will be the budget discussion, and I'll turn this over to the chief clerk and the finance department.
Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to our Wednesday finance meeting, which we've been on for quite some time, to continuously address the county's efforts to keep costs and revenues in alignment. It's that time of the year that everybody's favorite time, budget time, where all the efforts at trying to align costs and revenues come together. The commissioners received a full briefing on the budget projections. I believe it was a couple of weeks ago. We are here today with updated projections, and just to sort of frame this discussion, the budget process is what we do is capture the information and snapshot at any given moment, but it's an ongoing dynamic process as both more information becomes available and as we update our actual figures for 2015, which in turn impact what we face in 2016. Our finance department, quite appropriately, takes a very conservative view and would rather understate than overstate any of the elements that could put us at financial risk, so that we don't lull ourselves into any kind of complacency. So we'll start off with updated budget projections, and then again, as part of our efforts to sustain our more cost-effective way, or more modern way of running government, we have some new or revised financial policies designed to help us sustain the kind of economy of government and government spending, and improve productivity that we've been able to do over the years. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to our good friends from finance.
I updated the projections that you saw at the FAC. The changes that I updated were the 911 subsidy. I dropped it $1.2 million in 2015. And children and youth was bumped up about $230,000. I got an updated estimate from Lisa Ryder, children and youth. So there are the two changes I did in 15. So the 2015 projected ending fund balance will be $25.3 million, which is about $995,000 higher than where it was in the FAC presentation that we showed. Of course, that rolls out through 16 through 19. And you can see the new numbers, but 16 originally was projected at $23,008,000. We're now at $23,733,000.
So on the publication that's going to go on view, the budget for 15 is close but not exact. So these numbers will then be transferred into here for these corrections.
15 projected ending fund balance will roll into the document.
But not in.
Okay, your expenses and your.
There's no changes to that document.
There
This is an update on the projections.
It's just the projections.
Okay, so the revenue receipts were 71 million, okay? And the estimated fund balance then for 16 would be 21.
And that will be published.
And this is what's going to go on this
what's your
budget.
budget.
In the beginning, in the transmittal letter, we have a projection slide, and this will be there. The new one.
Updated,
We updated.
okay.
Just to be clear on this chart that's up here, the gap between projected revenues in 2016 and between projected expenditures in 2016 is $1,574,000, which is about a couple $100,000 higher than in terms of the gap than it was when you gave us the update a couple weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was. So can you explain the difference between maybe you touched on it because but can you explain the difference between the $1.3 million gap and what we're looking at in these projections now, which is closer to 1.6 million?
It's children, youth, and 911. When I updated the 15 projections, subsidies dropped in 15, which then gave me a higher fund balance when I roll into 16. That's why you're getting an increase in the fund balance in 16.
He's actually asking me opposite questions. He's asking
Yeah.
why the gap grew, and it's because children and youth.
Children and youth grew. They grew.
The subsidy.
That's based on our projected need to subsidize children and youth.
Yes.
Okay.
And that assumes state funding
Yes,
at some point.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is all operating under the assumption that they're going to pass a budget. So, but no, I mean, if you look at those numbers, and then you actually, I mean, I think that, the number that I think we should be paying attention to is the gap between the revenues that are coming in and what is that we project to spend in 2016. And it's based on your previous report, now it's grown from 1.3 million to 1,574,000, which is also the difference between in the drop, the exact same number, when you drop from the fund balance at the end of this year versus the fund balance that we would project for 2016.
But overall, there's an improvement to fund balance from our previous presentation because 911 were able to subsidize less in 2015.
The salaries and benefits on your today's projections are what you anticipate them to be. About 2 million on salaries
Yes, but
and about $1 million on.
we did not
I did not
You
make
didn't update any of the salaries or any of the
salary
benefits.
benefits, operating, capital, and transfers. I didn't change any of those numbers. The only numbers I changed were subsidy.
And we went back and did a quick review, and nothing major happened in any of the other categories. That's why we did an update.
I mean, the difference, I did a quick calculation, the difference between salary and benefits from 2015 projected is, and 2016 is about 2.2 million.
Salaries and benefits?
Yeah.
It's 37 versus 39. Salaries are up less than
1.5. Benefits are up 709.
About 600, okay. And then you notice from 17 out, the increase in benefits and salaries is moderate as compared to the jump in 2015 and to 2016.
But from 16 to 19, there's a considerable bump in benefits, 11 to 13.
That's based on assumptions regarding the cost of health insurance. And again, this is based on historical data. If we were to be able to implement some of the policies and strategies we aspire to regarding benefits, those numbers could come down. But those are aspirational, and you don't want to count on them when you're making your budget projections. So I'm guessing what the benefit line probably represents is based on historical increases, particularly in the area of health insurance, which run, it was down to 9% for 2016, but it did run in the mid-teens. That's what that reflects. Is that reasonable?
A large portion of it. It's FICA, retirement, health insurance.
So that's assuming there's not a major change in how health benefits are delivered.
Correct.
And as far as pension in front of New York, I
It's
think
built in based on the increase in salaries. And there is sufficient, the ARC was updated for 2016. We do have enough in the budget for that update.
What's the payment for this year? I'm sorry?
3,620,000.
20? Little under
And
four.
that's not just general fund, that's also
That's everything.
federal and state funds total for the ARC? Okay.
Yes.
And did we make an adjustment based on our financial advisor's recommendations due to market volatility about the ARC? We did.
We hedged that we figured it was coming, so we already had it.
Okay, so again, very conservative, consistently conservative. I wouldn't say this represents worst case scenario, but much closer to worst case.
Well, on the bell-shaped curve, we like to try to budget kind of at the 40-60 range. 40% we might not make it 60. Okay. Is that everybody's questions? Yeah, we can go on.
Are we going to talk about any of the detail here, or what do you want to do?
If you would like to, we can.
Well, here, again, I've started to look through this, is there an intent to put this on display today? Is that the thing?
No, it's November 5th.
Yeah, I was just looking through here. I did see that in the budget relative, we've had discussions about transit. I do see that Kirk put in a rough number for capital area transit. I think it's like 295,000. The request of cap was like 300,000, and we know we're going to have further discussion on this as to whether or not, we're going to obligate the county to cap for a full year, but we undoubtedly will have some costs related to providing mass transit service to the residents. And then just a couple other items I was looking at. Just give me a second here. I'm sorry, then I noticed that there's an increase in funds for fire training program. Does anybody know as to what that it's not a lot of money, but it's from this year it's 24,000. It's going to 40,000 in 2016. Do we know what that is?
Is that the building?
And if you don't,
Oh, the training grounds? It's the stuff we discussed with public safety review about the training grounds. It anticipates that we rebuild the small buildings, is that what it is?
Maybe the material on the outside,
Yeah.
plus maintenance and labor.
yeah, I didn't look at. Yeah, okay, it does have 15 grand in for capital, so that's probably what that.
And that was not done, it hasn't been, it won't be done this year. Mostly because of maintenance is scheduled, but it is definitely not there. And I think in our discussions with the ESDA and the firefighters, we made, if they were willing to step up to the plate to move forward on the training grounds and getting more participation and use from the fire departments, we would make good on our promise to prepare that structure. So
Does that affect the timeline on that, or else that if they step up with some, does that accelerate the potential? Okay. That would be interesting.
Let's see. Of course, we'll have more time to look at all this. The Office of Fiscal Court Investigator, we've spent in 2015 $171,000 for that, and they see we're projecting to spend the same amount in 2016. I would like to ask if we could get an updated report as to where we are in terms of the success of that office, because when we set that up, I guess we started it in 2014, at least started it up. But when we had set that up, I think the indication was from this board is that we wanted to make sure that it not only paid for itself, but then also generated, additional receipt of revenues that are owed this county from fines, and also restoration of costs and restitution for the victims of crime. So I'd kind of like to see where we are on that. I know that I think we were supposed to get updates on a quarterly basis, and I just would like to ask that maybe in the near future we get an update an analysis of how we're doing there.
I think we can do that this November. I think they were planning on doing that. So,
Okay.
we meet up tomorrow. Yeah, so I'll tell them to be ready to do that sometime.
That's all I have for now.
Capital Bridge Fund, is the vehicle tax reflected in this at all?
Yes.
Okay, it's reflected in expenditures, or is it,
County use fund, it's a separate.
what page? Do
It's
you know?
the next. I think it's right.
It would be right after local fuels.
Oh, you're in capital though. It's 246 is the,
Page A143.
So then, 1.25, it's from.
Okay, so that is not gonna go into the Capital Bridge Fund.
No, it
It's
hasn't.
it's a dedicated account.
And then budget resolutions will move it from one to the other. How's that gonna work?
Spend the money out of that fund.
You're gonna spend the money out of that fund, not the Capital Bridge Fund.
It'll be a combination. Invoices will have to be split based on funding.
We have, local fuels has 3 different accounts. They have the local fuels account, they have the local use fund, the $5 fee, and then they have the capital bridge fund.
So they
Yeah.
actually,
There's 5 funding sources.
they're actually separate accounts, so you probably have commingling restriction involved in that.
Yes. We try to be able to go in with it.
The state wanted to see that money in its own dedicated bank account.
For a lot of purposes, I assume.
Yes. I think there's slightly different audit rules too, isn't it?
It's gonna be treated much like liquid fuels is. So the requirements are gonna be kind of the same, but they still wanted the money to be separate.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I did talk to Kirk before I entered that. The other thing that'll change from this budget is that there's a number in there for the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, I think, of what it was, previously, and that'll drop from, I think, 103,000 down to 41,000 now for the transportation portion that we're going to be paying to Tri-County for Harrisburg Area Transportation Study and anything else related to transportation. But that number in there, that cost is going to drop down from what's in this document.
And similarly, if, and this is strictly in the realm of what's possible, if fixed route transit regionalization were to occur at some point, then we would get that 5-year grace period from local match, which would then take that roughly 300,000 that you have budgeted for CAP going forward, would then not have to be paid.
Yeah, that's right.
But again, we don't count on that happening. We try to make it happen, but we don't count from a budget projection standpoint. We don't count it as a result until it's one in the hand rather than two in the bush.
So once the board would take action, that number could be modified.
It depends, on how long it takes to execute when it actually officially becomes in place and the subsidy is granted by the vote is just there.
We ready to move on?
Okay, we have several policies we're going to talk about today. First is the purchasing policy. The purchasing policy was a complete rewrite. The point of rewriting the policy was to clearly define county code statutory guidelines, state what bidding limitations were, what the exceptions to bidding requirements were, define purchasing philosophy and what methods we can use to purchase, define delegation of authority, define contracts, what's a contract and what's a purchase order, and define our insurance requirements. So what's the purpose of purchasing redesign? It's to establish a standardized and modernized purchasing process in order to permit efficient and effective procurement functions that result in maximizing the value of each tax dollar spent while utilizing staff time in the most productive way possible within the bounds of the county code.
So just to sort of frame this a little more, since coming here in 2013, almost nothing gave me as much angina as purchasing issues that came up. I think in the literature, it talks about modernizing local government at all levels. It talks about trying to strike a reasonable balance between compliance and efficiency. I think that's one component, and a lot of this is geared towards that. The other component, I think, is to give people consistent guidelines that can be referred to both by the people who enforce the guidelines and by the people who operate under them. One of the problems that we had, which I think has been resolved with the change in our solicitor, is that in many cases no one knew what the rules were. The rules changed or seemed to change, which made it very difficult for anybody to predict what the outcome of a request could be, let alone how long it might take. What this does, and it's important to point out that Solicitor Brenneman was an integral part of the entire rewrite process, and his input was essential to basically everything he came up with. And although he's not a pope, he did, this has not only his blessing but his signature on those policies. And now purchasing gives me less danger than it did before. And part of the reason we're doing this, I went through this exercise, is to codify that, institutionalize it so we can carry forward and produce the benefits that are outlined here.
Okay, so in the summer of 2014, a purchasing redesign team was formed that included members from the Commissioner's Office, Finance Office, ERP, IMTO, Maintenance, Courts, Aging, and VA's Office, and Solicitor. And like Larry said, Keith was really a key piece of the process. He was not only the Commissioner's eyes and ears, he helped the group find the correct balance between compliance and modernization. So one of the first things that came out of the redesign group was a philosophy. And what this philosophy turned into was a method of grouping supplies and goods and services together into categories that will serve as a guide for departments, finance, and the solicitor's office to identify how things will be purchased. And what those groupings look like, they're a set of Excel spreadsheets. When a department wants to buy an item, they'll go to these spreadsheets. If you want to buy pens, office supplies, you find office supplies on here, and it walks you through the process of buying office supplies.
Now, is that through CoStars or not?
That will be CoStars. Via purchase order.
Ron, you said that John Locke was in on this too?
He was,
Okay.
in that shape.
Especially that.
These groupings are updated and maintained along the county also for use for the departments. Next is the bidding requirements. County code says there are certain situations where we're required to bid. When expenditures are $19,400 or more, we're required to advertise for bid. When expenditures are between $10,500 and $19,399, we're required to obtain 3 informal quotes. And these thresholds do change annually based on CPI, and it's changed through the Department of Labor issue.
Okay, before you proceed, this applies to not just capital purchases, but also services?
Correct.
Okay, now,
Well, some services are exempt.
Well, let's talk about that, because, a lot of times what happens is with services, we've gone out, and we've gotten requests for proposals, sometimes from one person. So my question is, how does this policy, how does this policy impact? Because I think, aren't services treated differently? And this is an answer to,
Yes.
services are treated differently than capital items.
Yes, overall, the county code says exactly this. This is the rules. And then they allow exceptions to that. One of the exceptions is professional services. And professional services, it's a choice. You can RFP them and get best value, or you can choose a professional vendor without going through the RFP process. In our collective policy, I believe that we encourage the RFP process.
The circumstances, we would not go through the RFP process, or what?
I'll use our indirect cost allocation plan as an example. Having the same company recurring year after year has an advantage in audit. So it's unlikely that we will RFP it because the best value is using the company that we've been using for years, because if a federal auditor comes into domestic relation and finds an issue that's 8 years back, they will still work with us and help work through their areas. And I use that as an example because that has occurred.
Well,
If you
we've all sat
transfer-
here when bids have, been open or no bids have been open. We put out a project and nobody has stepped up to say they want to do it for a variety of reasons. But
Well, they
I
may
know
not,
through drug and alcohol, they will go out periodically on an RFP for services. Those who have performed in the past are not necessarily those who will be selected to continue with that service. So it's a balance of pricing and, again, value and the outcome of the service that is being provided.
Yes.
So RFP language, I would believe, in this day and age, needs to be also tied to the outcome of what you're, producing for the money.
And that's a good example, because we had a long-standing provider providing through drug.
It was not selected.
Services to the prison, the prison population through DNA. And they've been in it for a long time, and stopped really, trying to innovate or provide better service. They went through a pretty exhaustive process to come up with an RFP that really spec'd out what was the award for it, and another provider came in with a better offering and a better price.
I think there have been times that there have been counties where the dollar threshold on a project, items have been compartmentalized so that it never hits the threshold, it never has to be bid.
We are not doing that.
So,
Our rule is the
going
county.
down that road is a very, very bad road, very bad road. If it is a $20,000 project, so be it, you're not gonna get 2 tens, so you don't have to bid that thing.
We spell that out very
Okay.
clearly in this when it's by project and when it's county spend as a whole.
Beginning, middle, and end for a project, not multiple ones.
Yeah, and the other thing we've seen a lot around here is that, we have sole source providers, in other words, where they.
Well, that's addressed back here.
Is
Well,
it?
it's addressed in the policy.
Yeah.
Oh,
We don't have it
all right.
in the PowerPoint itself, but it is.
Well, I mean, it's a term used, but poorly used.
Well, it depends on how the bid is prepared. If the bid only meets the specs, the specs only meet what one provider can provide, that, we ought to, that's one of the things that we need to look at constantly in terms of, can we tweak it so we can get more than, 1 or 2 entities that are bidding on it, so that we get the best bang for the buck. So I think that's, important to look at moving forward. But under this, what we're saying is that if it costs more than $19,400, we're going to go out to bid, or we're going to seek an RFP.
Or you
Right.
can buy it through approved consortiums.
Well, like
Or
co-stars or something.
State contract.
Yeah.
We have a list of consortiums that Keith has approved for us to use.
And there are exceptions to the bid and RFP requirement, and we spell those out.
Okay,
But we always recommend the RFP process if it makes sense.
And like I said, as an alternative to bidding, we do have approved consortiums that we can use. We can buy. The rules that, the examples of exemptions to bidding are maintenance, repairs, or replacement of water, electric, light, or public works that are not new additions or enlargements. Work done by our own employees. Those made with any public body, the federal government, any state, or any political subdivision of any state. Construction management services and computer software. Those are the exemptions.
and the exemption on computer software is because,
It's county code.
what?
It's county code.
It's spelled out.
Yeah.
Makes sense then.
It says in county code that,
Yeah.
okay.
These are all right out of county code.
So if you have a software provider, I'm sorry, more than one software provider, just because the county code says it's exempt doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to go out to bid, right?
We wouldn't want to bid that, we would want to RFP it.
Well-
Bid is low cost, we would want the best value. We could, yes.
I'm just saying, just because the county code says that it's exempt, it doesn't mean that if there's more than one provider of computer software that
Correct.
meets our needs, that we couldn't issue an RFP to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as I said earlier, we wanted to create a system that finds a balance between modernization and compliance. That is also cost efficient, standardized, and timely. So we're asking to build some delegation into the process. What county code says is the Board of Commissioners has the sole authority and responsibility to purchase the county's goods and services. So we'll take that a step further and say the finance, under the direction of the Board of Commissioners, will serve as the purchasing agent of the county, for the county. For other county departments, whether under the Board of Commissioners or other elected officials, shall have no authority to obligate the county to purchases not made through the finance office, with the exception of purchases under $500 that are not office supplies or services that are determined to be not low risk.
Okay. An office that shall remain nameless has their own money, is what we hear. I have all my own money. And I was at an association event, and this is the go-to software technology thing that everybody's using. I'm buying it. Yes or no? Yeah, I'm just throwing it out for yes or no. We've all heard it. We have heard that offices bring in their own revenue, and that's their money, and they want this system.
If the money falls on the county books, we go.
What money doesn't fall on the county books?
There are some.
Okay, that needs to be spelled out.
Well, and it is.
I mean,
Well,
and if anything else, I think for all other county departments, and I think for the general public. Because if I'm hearing this, well, this is my money, and I'm gonna spend this, and I'm gonna buy this technology, but then ultimately, well, gee, I need that upgrade, I need that maintenance contract, I need that, well, we're chasing the next technology, and it comes to the Board of Commissioners, then it's like, well, they didn't fund it. Well, now wait a minute. See where I'm going with this?
if somebody does come forth like that, we make sure that they're complying with county code, because they still are obligated to, whether they have money externally or unless it's specifically designated in their legislation, that they don't have to follow county code, they still have to follow all of the purchasing authorities that all other county purchases do. So we make sure that it falls in line with that. If it's technology, we require that IMTO see it, because we don't have to allow them to add it to our servers and those things. They're authorized to spend that money. Our authority changes a little bit to making sure it's just in compliance.
That's a
Does that make
relatively,
sense?
that's a pretty unambiguous situation, I would imagine. The code says we are a purchasing agent. If they have legislation, it's probably pretty specific, I imagine.
The only one that I specifically know of is the drug task force with the district attorney, and those monies are not on the books.
Why is that?
Because it's just carved out of the law that those monies
Oh,
are
okay,
separate.
so it's just an
They go through a
exception.
separate audit, they do have an audit,
Sure.
but it's, in their legislation, it is not to be part of our books.
It's not part of any of our funds.
We journal entry it on at year end, but we do not,
You know what I mean?
Is it part of our audit?
no.
That's all.
The district attorney's office is responsible
The district
for
attorney
accounting for those funds.
and the controller's office does a separate audit for those funds, and we are not involved.
It's not part of our audit.
Correct. But it is
So
specifically
it
the
doesn't-
legislation that they do not have to follow. That's the only one I specifically know about.
And this thing about the software that Commissioner Cross brings up, I mean, in this day and age, the notion of a software application is like within one department and not tied to the network is not really a valid claim for it. It's a reflection of the state of things. Everything's connected to a network, which means that there is no such thing as I have my money, I can do this, I don't need, because the first time anything happens, the first people they call,
It's not tail.
And they may not be trained in that area to support that.
or a collector or a resource, or whatever,
Spell that out for everybody.
especially for some of us.
Sure. We might have to add a little bit more specific.
To what extent, before we go on from that, to what extent are, purchases being made currently that, don't run through the finance office?
If they're following the normal trail, the only ones that would not go through our office would be under $500 or under one of the other types of exemptions, like the utilities and that type of thing. But we see the contracts, we see the purchase orders, so almost everything.
So we're already doing what it is you want to put in
Yes,
law here or whatever.
Yes.
Establish
this
policy.
is spelling out.
Okay.
So the notion that a department or whatever has quote its own money and can do with it as it pleases is not really the case. I mean, there's not a secondary market of people writing checks off departmental accounts to pay for capital expenditures or whatever. And Tammy gives all of her money to here, gives all the money to records improvement. So,
Offender supervision is an example. They have their own, that it's the judge's money, and he spends it at will. And he has always run through our purchasing policies, and they pay salaries out of that fund now. So they always work with us, and actually they give $75,000 back to the general fund out of this money. So normally everybody works with us.
Okay, the third bullet on here, the county solicitor and the finance office will observe and enforce all of the procedures outlined in the manner that the purchases have been made fairly, expeditiously, competitively, and ensure that the best interest of the county has been served. This slide is stating the finance office's authority and duties. This is not an all-encompassing list, it kind of hits on key points. The first one is all purchase orders will be done through the finance office. Ensure proper procedures are followed. Maintain and update the purchasing manual and purchasing procedures on an as-needed basis. Define and maintain the purchasing groupings. enter and execute by the county to written contracts for amounts of $10,000, which have been approved in writing by the solicitor's office. This is a current ordinance. What we're requesting is to increase the amount from $4,000 to $10,000. That was that.
When was the last time that was adjusted, or has that been in place forever?
I have a copy of the ordinance, but I don't have the dates on it, on when it was adopted.
I believe it's more than 5 years. And to be honest, it's up to the solicitor, whether he sends them back to us or puts them on a meeting. He determines risk level and either determines it back to financial or it's on a meeting. So that's right.
10,000 is a recommendation from the
From the
solicitor.
solicitor. We're not making the decision of whether it should come to a commissioner's meeting or come to finance, the solicitor is.
Then the solicitor's office, they will have the authority and duty to provide guidance to departments of finance in regards to interpretation of the policy, county code, and other relevant laws. If finance and a department would disagree, Keith would be the deciding factor. Interpret the law. This third bullet is also a new change. Determine suitable levels of insurance by contractor providers in conjunction with input from the Human Resource Department as necessary. We'll talk about the insurance in a couple slides, but we're trying to get away from that hard line of $1 million.
$3 million or
Right.
however
So,
that
we're trying to build
was
in a little bit of
ridiculous
flexibility.
amount.
Do not believe that time.
My word.
In this county. And nobody could cite anything other than as a justification for it. There was no way for a formula. No.
Nothing in writing.
So one of our next steps would be to build a searchable and user-friendly purchasing manual that's written to serve as a how-to guide for departments.
Good God, I'm an RFP and somebody could do that for you. I think you can. But wait, we might have to bid that, so. Don't do that.
And that would be computer software.
Yeah, I know. It would be exempt, that's right.
Okay. So when do we need to use a contract? For goods and services that are bid, they need to be contracts. For services that are determined to be not low risk, they need to be contracts. Any RFPs need to be contracts. In purchases that require acceptance of the contractor's terms and conditions or need a full signature.
And Keith is driving that.
Yes.
So what situations when we need a purchase order? All goods $500 or more that do not require bidding. All office supplies need to be purchase orders. Purchases made through an approved consortium and services that are not contracts.
And that would be, either the provider doesn't need one, or they feel that there's insignificant risk that we would need a contract to bid.
Yes.
So there are certain situations where purchases are exempt from needing a contract or a purchase order. Those are purchases for $99 or less, unless they're an office supply or they're a service that is determined not to be low risk. Repetitive telephone, utility type services, or interagency payments. If we cut a check to the state or to another county, they are exempt. Employee-specific expenses like tuition reimbursement or reimbursement for conference-related travel or meals. And any item that has been approved with an exemption status. Okay, on to the insurance requirements. In the past, like Larry said, insurance has been an issue and has been very timely and costly, and there was no standardization. So in the new process, we're looking to build those things in. The county requires that contractors have and maintain certain types of insurance coverage when they enter county property or otherwise provide services. That level of insurance required will be deemed appropriate by the Human Resources Department and the county solicitor based on type, scope of service provided, and the level of risk associated with that service. They said we're trying to get away from that 1.3 million. There are situations where we could maybe do 500,000 or $1 million or 1 million, 2 million, and we want to give HR and the solicitor that flexibility to make those.
I mean, I think it comes down to risk management. And under the old way of doing things, any risk was huge risk, and you had to take the utmost precautions to mitigate that risk, which is not an accurate reflection of the level of risk we face in any given situation or commercial exchange.
What is the situation with the service provider? I mean, a service may bring with it a greater risk for everyone as opposed to a different service.
And Keith has agreed to kind of outline the risk levels and to put it in the purchasing manual. So it'll change, but it's kind of a guideline. So departments don't have to run to us or or HR every time.
And it allows for variation under the old way, not to cast dispersion, but it was whatever the insurance that the solicitor was carrying for himself became the standard for everybody else, regardless of how high or low risk it was. And I think that created a lot of the issues. And it may have been something that was a good thing, a beneficial thing at the time, but I think after a while, I think everybody realized it was a better way to go.
And the last bullet, the request to reduce or waive insurance coverage requirements will be determined by a combination of HR and the solicitor's office. So next steps are where we go from here. We want to develop the purchasing manual, make updates to that as needed. We want to train departments on the purchasing policy and purchasing manual. We don't want to just put the policy out there and say, here it is. We want to get out and do some legwork and get departments trained on how to use this.
What do you envision that being? I mean, is that you guys go department to department or groups of departments?
Probably grouping the departments, do several trainings, maybe record the training for ongoing training. When new employees come in, they can watch the video. There'll be a set of materials for them to look at.
Really? Your PowerPoint presentation with a voiceover, it's standard.
We've talked tonight too about a PowerPoint that has someone speaking to it. It'll be able to be watched.
Examples, everybody loves them. I mean, it will just resonate better with a damn example than, $500. Well, yeah, I can think of something for $500, but give me an example of the $500. I had a note here on the policy thing for the sole source. Are we going to talk about that? Or not? I mean, you don't have to. It's just, I think Jim brought it up. It's spelled out pretty clearly on how, the misuse, let's say, of that term to sort of protect maybe some or others. But we hear it often in public safety. Sole source on technology that's just out there and got to happen. So I think that this pretty much outlines
And the determination on sole source is sits with Keith, the final
Okay.
determination.
All
So
right.
departments may make their case to Keith and he'll determine yes or no that
Okay.
qualifies as sole source in accordance with what's written in the policy.
Okay.
So kind of as a wrap up, having an approved purchasing policy is an important component to modernizing and standardizing the purchasing process. It benefits everyone from the top down. It clearly defines boundaries for us to work within. And then at the end of the day, we all know what to expect.
And what I really like about this, again, it did not to be deadly. It not only puts out standards that the enforcers of these standards can refer people to, but it also gives anybody looking to use those standards a point of reference to either question or challenge a decision that they feel doesn't follow those things. So same rules apply to to everybody.
Now moving on to the next section. We have some updates to financial policies. There are 3 policies that we're recommending updates to: the budget, fund balance, and capital policy. Some of the updates are simply changing definitions based on changing financial reporting requirements. There are some other changes, and I would like to be clear about what is just changing the definitions versus what is making a substantial change to the
So
policy.
are these definitions ones that are provided through the change, or are they ones we've developed based on a suggestion by the policy?
For financial reporting purposes, we had to switch from designated to assigned. That's part of it. And then they took the unassigned fund balance and split it into 2 pieces.
But they are very clearly defining what these changes are.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we have been using this fund balance definition, it's just not, hasn't been updated in the policy. So while we're working on the purchasing policy, we decided to clean up some of the other assignments and designate it. So for the budget policy, the only change where is to update the fund balance definition. And it'll read for budgetary purposes in the general fund, fund balance is unassigned fund balance plus assigned future budgetary requirements. In the past, before this was split out by the financial reporting requirements, it was all unassigned. So we're just taking the 2 pieces that were broken out and combining them for that purpose. If we don't do that, there's big variations from year to year in unassigned fund balance.
Which you look on.
No, this is really the best way to do it.
On the policy sheet, the 3rd page, where you talk about vacant positions, will be budgeted at step 1. Are we using terminology like step 1? Or that should be changed?
You know what, we probably should do it, because when I review
Take it
it,
out.
we'll update,
Okay.
we'll
And
budget
Liz
that
just
again.
walked out of here, I would have, yeah.
We'll update that.
Second paragraph is on the 3rd page, county budget salaries and benefits by position. And it reads vacant positions that will be filled during the next budget year will be budgeted at step 1. Just
Yeah.
We'll just say at the minimum, we'll update that.
the,
Just get the right,
whatever.
the right term for each item.
Okay. And we'll review it to make sure there's no other, because when, to be honest, when I reviewed this, it was before the, so. Okay, the next changes are the fund balance policy. And this is, the first part of it is exactly the same from the budget policy, is updating that definition of fund.
And we'll go back to the thermometer. I
Yes.
like the thermometer.
We're still gonna have the thermometer.
I do. The thermometer's good. And you used to have those, the charts. The red ones that were in red. They started out in green, some they were yellow and green, some they were all red.
Right now, we're all in green, that's why we haven't done it. But since you're on that page, if everybody could go to the thermometer, I'll talk to the thermometer.
Well, okay, you talked about 5 categories of fund balance. The restricted funds, the bridge money would be in that, right?
It's a separate fund.
For
So it's
restricted funds?
It's already, it's not in the general fund, so it's in its own fund, and it's restricted to that use.
So there's more than 5 categories. You can answer that later.
It's hard to answer that. It is restricted because it's in its own fund. It doesn't necessarily.
It's the way your table of accounts is set up.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Within each account,
It's restricted to that account, so we don't have to further restrict it. Because it's set outside all that stuff.
so by
That makes
definition,
sense.
if it's in a separate account, it cannot be used in another account.
Right, but here you list, there are up to 5 categories of fund balance.
Yes.
Okay? Non-municipal fund balance, restricted funds, committed fund balance, assigned fund balance, and unassigned fund balance. So restricted would take all the things that we would think of as restricted.
Yes.
Okay.
However, they may not say restricted specifically in the financial statements. They may, but it depends on where they're falling in the financial statements as to whether they actually go up into the restricted.
Okay.
Okay? So if everybody turns to page 26 to the thermometer, I'll talk to the changes off of that because I think it's easier to understand when you see the thermometer. The one update that we're requesting is to change the 60 days of general fund operating expense to 70 days. And the reason I would like to do that is because our minimum fund out, our minimum cash requirement is about $14.5 million. So the 60 days is below that. 70 days is right about, it's $14,665,000. So to,
So this is just an adjustment for inflation.
yes.
But the GFO, I assume this is GFOA recommendation, 60 days.
The
So we
recommend,
have that.
yeah, the recommendation says that it needs to be at least 60 days,
60 days.
but you need to look at your own circumstances. So in our circumstances, the cash flow is
Yeah, I
about
just want to hear
40.
how much leeway did they give you to allow for the circumstances and that?
They're just saying you can't go any lower than that, but you need to look at your actual circumstances. So 70 days is where we get into the cash flow issues. But then we also take a look at what we need to respond to emergencies and other items. And what we used to say is it was 60 days of general fund operating plus the other funds that have a general fund impact. That's confusing. So we're trying to, it's very confusing. So we're trying to put it in terms of operating days in the general fund. That's where the 100 days of the thermometer is coming from. So the first point is the 70 days of general fund, and the second point is 100 days. And that's the target to meet unanticipated events. And we're sitting above 24 million right now. As a side note, with the state budget impasse, if we would be at that 100 days or less, we would have cash flow impacts in December as opposed to February and June. So that is the whole crux of why you have the fund balance to respond to unforeseen emergencies and things like this. And it can be many different things. It's not always a state budget impasse.
It's not unlike a household having a savings account.
So that is so I explained the next 3 slides, basically, on looking at the thermometer. And the one page is just the whole write-out, the bullets added to what it will look like in the policy. So then, moving on to the capital policy, there are 2 changes here. One is just changing the title to meet the new financial reporting requirements, and it's changing it from designated capital fund balance to assigned. And then the other request that I have is currently it has a dollar value for the minimum in the assigned capital balance of $1,500,000. I'm requesting to change it to 5% so that it changes and you don't have to keep coming back to update the number. So it'll change as the general fund changes. And then we updated assigned throughout the document.
And you make reference to on page 3, Claremont. But there's no reference to Claremont's 5%.
Well, Claremont has the operations reserve, so I know we do not have a specific assignment in there other than
So the
that
question is,
operations.
should it be in there at all? Or should it be in there with the explanation that you just gave me? How I read this was, we were also looking at 5% on Claremont. And if it is, that's fine. If it's not, then perhaps it either needs to be addressed separately with a caveat or removed. See what I mean?
Yeah, I think the original intention was just to say that we could set funds aside for Claremont.
I know.
Because we used to not,
I
and
understand
that's where that operation reserve came from.
Right, but when you are looking at, the 5% for estimated 16 end year of, 3.6, current balance 3.7. If you are looking at that whole package of county and Claremont, that presents a very different story. Or if you're looking at simply county. So when you read page 3 and suddenly now you've got Claremont in there, I think it would bring up additional questions like the ones I have. So
I'll look at the
we don't need an
wording.
answer now. But
Yeah, because, I mean, Claremont, as long as it's running in the black, operates pretty much almost like an enterprise, but that only would be applicable without a subsidy. And it is possible that at some point, hopefully not, so you kind of need an approach that covers it, not just in the current state, but in whatever state it could be.
So their current assigned fund balance is technically set aside for this.
right,
Would you like, should I put like 8%, it will not go below a certain percent? Because I can add that word.
I think we need to have a conversation about that
Okay.
and see, as the Claremont board, kind
Yes.
of, let's have that conversation as a Claremont board, see if that needs to be addressed that way.
Okay.
So your infrastructure includes the bridges on this second page, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And John reviewed it. I think John and Mark both reviewed the policy and they did not recommend changes, so. Well, John recommended the contingency that we have after this on fund balance.
Okay. And either under long-term planning, you have facilities, technology, fleet maintenance, other, bridges can be other.
Okay.
So you're looking for action at the next regular meeting on these policies?
Yes, but I can pull the capital policy out if we want to wait for a board meeting at the.
Well, I think maybe we don't need to delay that for a full board meeting, but we need to have at least some opportunity as a board of the nursing home to discuss that.
Okay.
Don't we have a meeting coming up?
We just had it.
We just did.
Oh, sorry.
So it's a month.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. I keep thinking tomorrow there's a workshop.
Yeah.
So, yes, I can delay that,
Okay.
but I prefer not to delay all of them.
No,
They're not necessarily required though, for enactment prior to voting.
No.
It's just we want to get the upgrade done.
Yes, and we kind of stalled on creating the purchasing manual until the policy is approved. So we want to get working on that because we'd like to have it trained and out by the end of the year. Any additional questions? So we'll put all of the policies except for capital on for the next workshop. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? I want to thank Finance Department, everybody who worked on the purchasing policy, you've done a great job. Solicitor's office was great, as well as facilities and the department, there are other departments. I mean, we had
Eric.
Eric Radovich participated and behaved.
He actually helped, he had some good ideas. He really did.
You're so surprised at that.
Well, you know, he sometimes starts with, but when he starts talking about things, he comes up with some really good
On
ideas.
the continuum of compliance and modernization, Eric's an outlier.
I won't question that.
In a good way. In a good way.
He really came, he had some good ideas.
He did.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I like that. Good job. The approach of using task forces to address some of these outstanding issues is really working.
I tell you, how to keep them all in, I mean, instead of it being an adversarial thing, it was a team approach where everybody had a common objective and, you know, their limits, the limits were done in the context of, you know, what the overall objective was, so that, again, it goes back to that same thing, trying to strike a balance between efficiency and compliance and appropriate risk management rather than, over-management.
And he spent a day every week with us for 2 months. It was a substantial way out of time. But we defined a lot of things that previously were not defined, so we put a lot more work into it.
And needless to say, I mean, it's a reflection of his approach in practice. Since he's come on board to be more collaborative. And I think this is kind of like the result.
And I have to point Tammy and Teresa out, because they're the purchasing agents. And they really took a lot of time and energy, did a lot of extra work down at the police office.
So if anything goes wrong with this, we won't.
No, maybe, and then I'll yell at them.
That's why you dragged them in there. We never see that.
No, but they put a lot of hard work into
And
it.
it's evident. So, thank you very much.
It was their hard work and dedication on those groupings. They were in the trenches testing it continually.
Good job,
And so
ladies.
hopefully we have,
It's also in line with self-interest on their part, because in the end, I think this will make your job a little less stressful.
I think it already has.
It has.
Good.
Yes.
More definition to it.
Because you both had big afros before.